All wings report in. Austin standing by.
Mike, standing by.
Austin, standing by.
The Rogue 3 podcast is locked on target. Whether it's movies, shows, books, comics, or more, we're going to be coming to you from a galaxy far, far away to celebrate all things Star Wars.
Hello. Welcome to the Rogue 3 podcast. We're excited to come to you with a new episode today, focused on Star Wars video games and the importance they play to the series as a whole. Before we get started, we go ahead and talk about what some of the things we've been doing in Star Wars in our own personal lives. Austin?
Well, I recently took a lovely journey down to the small city of Atlanta, Georgia, to visit one Austin C., the other Austin. And we went to go see A New Hope in theaters, which was my first time ever seeing it in theaters. I had a great time. I caught a lot of things that I'd never caught before, which was kind of fun. It's funny what a difference the big screen can make, especially when you're watching Star Wars. There's so many details. Star Wars is such a detailed series, so it's great to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, it was really cool too because it wasn't at a movie theater; it was at the Fox Theater, which is the large like stage acting theater in Atlanta. So like very historic, and the design of that theater, the roof looks like the night sky. So you're kind of like watching Star Wars with the stars above you. So that was really cool. It was a really neat event. There were lots of like Star Wars cosplayers there, like for posing for pictures. Notably, the first person we saw was a Count Dooku, which you just don't run into Count Dooku.
We have an awesome picture of Austin with Count Dooku. We might have to post it to our Instagram.
Yeah, I was very excited. I was like, "It's Count Dooku."
Yeah, that is not one you see very often.
No, it is not. And
it was like A New Hope.
It was Count Dooku, and then to the other side there was like two classic stormtroopers, and then like in the prime spot in the lobby was Leia and one of like the Alderaan guards, and she had an awful smelling wig. We got a picture of her.
She might be watching this. What if that poor woman is watching this?
I choose to believe that was not her wig, and that she was not a dedicated Leia cosplayer. She was someone hired to show up, and they dusted it off from storage. And
I can imagine a wig gets very smelly. I don't know. If you're listening, poor woman. We love you. You were very friendly.
She was great. She was super friendly.
You were awesome.
Yeah.
The wig smelled a little bit, but
was it the buns?
Yeah, it was classic.
It was her classic.
Leia,
that's what I thought.
And there was a Darth Vader, and then there was clone troopers are not my forte, but if I'm not mistaken, it was like the red medical clone troopers that you see at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Oh,
I
not
think
like the Coruscant Guard.
I'm sure someone will come in.
No, it was like it's mostly white, but it has like red on the armor, and it's very much it's very much Revenge of the Fifth Time clones. But it was a very specific thing to have. Like if you have like 5 Star Wars characters, having him there was a very interesting choice. But very good armor, and there was some people walking around in 501st stuff.
Cool.
But overall, it was a very cool event. It was being put on by Coca-Cola to promote their new Star Wars Cokes that are out right now. I've definitely been going to town on those. I'm a frequent Coke Zero drinker regularly, and I've currently had multiple Darth Vaders because that's the case. I ended up being Darth Vader, and then I've had a R2-D2, a C-3PO, and a Finn. And then I've been buying all of the Queen Amidala ones I can find. So the trick is going to be finding the can of Queen Amidala, because the cans are all one character in a set of 12, and you don't know what you're getting until you buy it. And she's on regular Coke, and I only buy Coke Zero, and so I'm not going to just happen upon her. So it's going to take some critical thinking, but I'm going to figure it out.
Go back to that barbecue place we went to. Maybe they'll have it.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. I've never seen A New Hope in theater. I don't also drink Coke. I don't do soda. So like I'm not collecting those like you. But it reminds me of like the early Pepsi cans for episode 1. Like the similar kind of vibe to it is kind of cool to see it. It's making me remember and kind of relive those. So I like that. For myself, I just went on a vacation and hopefully I won't cough while off mute, but I'm overcoming a little bit of bronchitis. So we'll see if that works out. There might be some interruptions. But I just went on a trip, and what I did was I was camping, but it was so hot that I just kind of read my books, and I was reading Leia, Princess of Alderaan for the first time. After we had talked about Mask of Fear and Andor and how that timeline lines up, I really wanted to get into that book, and it was so good. I read it in like 3 or 4 days, and it's like a 350, 400 page like young adult book. So it's not that short. And I couldn't put it down. I was reading chapters at breakfast and then multiple chapters in the evening for like an hour or 2 each day. And it was really good. And then the other thing that I'm working on when I got home from that trip is I've been 3D printing. And for our viewers on YouTube, you'll see I'm 3D printing a Scout Trooper helmet. And I just finished off what I think is the last big piece, the mask, the front piece. I've printed clone trooper helmets before. I've done a Mandalorian helmet, and I've done a Death Trooper helmet before. And this is going to be my first like white Imperial helmet. So that is kind of a first time for me. And I did a little bit of a redesign on some of the cuts and stuff. And so getting into trying to get back into 3D printing masks. It's been 3 or 4 years since I've printed one of those before. So it's been a good long time, a good time to get back into it.
I had the Death Trooper mask, and it's.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought you still had it, but I couldn't remember. I was like, I think I gave that.
You gave it to me because you couldn't move with it.
Yes. Yeah. When I left Richmond and moved out west, I couldn't fit it in the car, and so Austin got lucky with that one. I am planning.
Spoiler alert! I do live in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes. Now we know where 2 of the Austins live.
Where does Mike live?
Ooh, secret. But I am planning to do a Death Trooper helmet again, because with that one, I didn't do any of the green lighting, and I want to put like a little LED in, which is like a little simple switch and a little just circle battery, and have the little green lights in their kind of rebreather part, because I didn't do that with the original one. But now that I know a lot more about 3D printing and how to kind of make tweaks to the designs and everything, I think I should be able to do that. So after I finish this Scout Trooper one, I'll be doing that. And then the last thing, and it was kind of relevant, part of the reason why we moved towards doing video games is in preparation for some Star Wars trivia at DragonCon. I got around to playing Star Wars Squadron, the storyline. I played the game a little bit when it first came out. I did a couple of the missions, but I never finished it. And so now I'm about halfway through. It's a pretty quick storyline for the most part. I've only played a few hours and halfway through the missions. But it was part of the reason why I wanted to talk more about Star Wars video games, because I thought it's a good topic. And we also talked about Star Wars Galaxy last week or 2 weeks ago, and wanted to kind of talk about how video games pull you into the universe. So what are your guys' first Star Wars video game memories? We talked about our first Star Wars memories, but what are your first memories of a Star Wars video game?
Well, my first memory is one of the earliest video games I ever played. We were an Xbox family. And so we had the Star Wars Obi-Wan Xbox exclusive game. Looking back on it, and when I read reviews about it, people did not really seem to like it. But this game is insanely nostalgic for me. One of my fondest memories is the way the lightsaber combat worked. So instead of using like the trigger or anything, you use the right joystick to control where the lightsaber went. And I'm not sure any other Star Wars games have really done that. So I absolutely loved it. I remember we would always get so stuck on the levels before, it takes place over the course of the Phantom Menace, and we'd always get stuck on the levels before that. So we never ever even got to the Phantom Menace as children. Also, the Clone Wars that came out around Attack of the Clones that took place at the beginning of the Clone Wars. It was mostly just vehicle combat, but it was really, really cool. And then, of course, one of the greatest Star Wars games ever made, Knights of the Old Republic. The amount of time it took us to figure out how to switch characters and get out of the first room is embarrassing. It was several rental cycles. Please bear in mind that we were like, 7 or 8. So when I say we, I mean me and my brother. So we struggled a little bit with that game. But once I got a little bit older, I really, really appreciated it, and I do have fond memories of it as a child.
Yeah, what about you, Austin?
For me, yeah, so I'm not a big gamer, so video games are not like a huge part of my life. I pretty much Pokemon and Harvest Moon are the only games I ever play consistently. Um, but I do have very fond memories of playing Lego Star Wars Complete Saga on Wii.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big game for me, and one of the first video games I remember completing. So that was fun. Like for someone that doesn't love video games, Lego Star Wars is pretty like safe
Yeah.
entry point. Like the consequences for dying are pretty limited. So it was fun. And I had fun getting the newest Lego Star Wars game that came out. I guess that was 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
On the Switch, that was a fun to kind of revisit those games again. And then the only other Star Wars game I've ever played, like any notable amount of, was the lightsaber game for the Clone Wars. But they came out with the Clone Wars TV show on the Wii, where you like used your like Wii remote as a lightsaber, and it was super glitchy and not really fun at all. But we really tried because it had I don't know how much you guys remember about Wii's, but they would always tell like the little like gimmicks that came with the remotes.
Yeah.
And so you like sat your Wii remote like inside of a lightsaber, and that was fun, like getting to do that. But it was more of fun in theory than in practice.
Yeah. Maybe Star Wars needs to branch out into like the slice of life video game where you're just on Tatooine, you're a moisture farmer trying to gather up the water. The Tusken Raiders are friendly at this point, so they don't attack you. And it's something I'm picturing like Harvest Moon, something that's just like very like simple slice of life, nothing that's intense and crazy.
Why has that not happened yet?
I'm wondering. There's nothing that I know of that's like that for Star Wars.
I have very little experience about it besides knowing that it exists, but they did do on The Sims 4. They did a Galaxy's Edge expansion.
Oh,
and so I had no idea what that entails, but I do know that exists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. My first memories go way back. It's probably some of my earliest Star Wars memories in general. We had a little, Windows 98 home computer, and I remember having Dark Forces. I think it must have been a rental where you got it for a week and you would play it as much as you could and then had to take it back or extend it or forget that you have it and then pay a little extra. And so I remember playing that game quite a bit. But really the two that were very, very like seminal games in Star Wars were Jedi Power Battles, which was based on Episode 1, and then the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, the pod racing game. That was my favorite game. Played it all the time. Like, loved every course. I could probably draw a few of them, I think, from memory, I would hope, because I played it so often. I'm like, oh, here's the shortcut, and you jump off that ramp and blast through the ice tunnel, and that's how you do a shortcut. And so those were all of my memories. And then the one that I probably had the most hours in before kind of the Disney renaissance of video games was Battlefront 2. I played a lot of that. That was the first game I ever played, I think, online, like not through a PlayStation 2. I never connected a console to the internet before, but figured out how to unplug the Ethernet cable and plug it into the PS2 without my parents realizing that I had unplugged the internet from their thing. And so I started to play that online, and it was a lot of fun to go online, play that game. And that was kind of like a first foray into a larger galaxy, you could say. And so I really, really liked that. But Star Wars video games goes way, way back. I went back and looked at older games and stuff like that. And they mostly either just followed the movies, which was all that really existed at the time, or they were non-storyline, like a flight simulator where you're just kind of in this battle and there's no storyline moving forward or anything. But Dark Forces, based on Doom, using the same kind of system that Doom had, brought in brand new characters for the first time from what I could find. And one of the most famous ones is Kyle Katarn, who people still love and is still a really important character to a lot of people. And it has a new storyline where there are basically, and we've seen them now in canon, like dark troopers essentially were first introduced in Dark Forces. And so there are little tidbits that were in that game where you're kind of going through these tunnels and these pathways and shooting bad guys, stormtroopers at the time. And there's not that much to the storyline. There's just a little bit to it that you don't know all of the details. But Dark Forces is that first one, and it spawns 3 sequels to it. It's one of the, I think, probably the game with the most sequels for Star Wars video games. And so it spawns Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2. And so it really spawned kind of an emergence of Star Wars video games. And it's the first time pulling in new characters from outside the movies, outside books. They didn't exist before that video game. And that's really where a lot of Star Wars video games have changed, is what many of them are focused on, both after that and even today. So that, led us to different games like Knights of the Old Republic. That is, I think, probably the most famous, most beloved game in all of Star Wars, both canon and non-canon.
Absolutely. And, hopefully here we'll get a little bit of news on the new remake of Knights of the Old Republic. As a kid, I didn't appreciate Knights of the Old Republic like I do now, whereas now I've come to replay it every couple of years. It really, where other games like Dark Forces, Jedi Outcast brought story into Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic really brought us into the role-playing world of Star Wars. And really, we don't have an enormous amount of role-playing Star Wars video games. And I'm hoping that maybe we see a little bit more of that as we're diving further into canon Star Wars. We'll talk about those games a little bit later, but it really allowed you to put as much as possible yourself into Star Wars, which was really exciting. It lets you have a lot of choice with how you battled, whereas before you played a single character and you had no choices there. And then it gave you a lot of choice as far as story goes. They did eventually come in and, as far as when Legends was still canon, canonize the events of certain choices. But originally the game, it was completely open-ended. There was no right or wrong. Whatever you chose is what was true for that game. And Bioware did an amazing job with that game. I want to go ahead and hype up Obsidian for Knights of the Republic 2, The Sith Lords, which in my opinion, had it been completed as, all the way, it would be a superior game. That brought in an early influence system that we're seeing in a lot of other video games. Even today, we still see influence systems, like in Baldur's Gate 3, there's an influence system. So it's really cool to see early versions of that and how Obsidian was really leading the way with systems like that. And one of the best video game characters of all time, of course, Kreia, who I'm an enormous fan of. Do you remember Kreia?
I do. Yeah, I didn't play Knights of the Old Republic 2 when I first played Knights of the Old Republic. It was years later, like college. I got it on Steam. And so I don't have as many memories of it. I have played it all the way through.
With the restoration mod?
Maybe.
Ooh.
I'm not sure. I would have to double check.
Restoration mod. Okay.
I don't know.
So essentially when they were making the game, it was extremely rushed. And I think they were trying to get it out in time for Revenge of the Sith. So they really didn't have a whole lot of time to finish the game. And a lot of stuff was cut. Well, what happened is all that stuff actually sat in the video game files, and a team later came pretty early on. I think the original versions of the restoration mod were released pretty early, and restored a bunch of that content. And they had been working on it continuously for a while up until, I think maybe it finished in the late 2010s. When they were kind of finally done with it. But it restores a significant amount of content that really, really improves the story, and makes it even better than it was at release. But in addition to Knights of the Republic, we also have some awesome video games like The Force Unleashed. You know, we talk a lot about multimedia projects in Star Wars. The Force Unleashed really brought our first video game multimedia project within Star Wars. You know, we had Shadows of the Empire from the 90s that was basically the everything but a movie release, where we had a video game and a book and a soundtrack and action figures. And then we had the Clone Wars multimedia project from the early 2000s with books and comic books and a show. But The Force Unleashed was the first version of a video game actually getting that treatment, where we got a book, a comic book, we got 2 video games. And so it's really an example of old, you know, pre-canon Star Wars building bridges between different pieces of content really effectively. And so that was really exciting. Yes.
I just say I remember that very heavily. I read the novel. I didn't play the video game. I did read the novel. With to let the my non-technologically savvy hands get hold of that story.
Yeah.
But I remember like how hype everybody was for that. My brother played video games and he was really excited for it. And I remember it was doing so much promotion. And I know the reason I locked in on it because it had Shakti in there, and she was one of my favorite characters.
I was the same way.
It was one of the many Shakti deaths.
Many deaths.
Yeah.
And you know what? She deserves to have as much screen time as possible, and if it has to be her dying, so be it.
So be it. But I just remember like how excited everybody was for that. And it also brought us Sam Witwer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah,
I believe
he voiced
it did. Was
Starkiller, right?
Yeah.
I think it is the first time he voiced
Then he, of course,
Star
went on
Wars
to voice Maul in the Clone Wars, and I think he's done a lot of other voice acting throughout the series, and obviously he's a major figure in Star Wars voice acting right now. So go Force Unleashed. Like, that was awesome.
That's it's those little things that you don't realize how much influence a video game, even when it's non-canon, has had on current canon, right? Like, we're getting a whole Darth Maul show. Like, if he didn't do such a good job with that Maul voice, they might not have done as much as they did with the character. But because they had brought him in for a video game, and then he comes on to the Clone Wars and does really well. And there's a famous clip of him, you know, correcting Dave Filoni about that Padme had met Shmi.
Right.
He becomes kind of a legend amongst Star Wars fans. And I love that. Like, it's those little things, like this guy Starkiller, which we know the name comes from the original script of Luke Starkiller, but then becomes Starkiller Base. Like, those names live on, and that was something that it did as well. So I kind of like how even these games that haven't become canon or are not still canon, they're legends, are still influencing canon and what Disney's doing. Like, even though they're not canon, like, they're still there. They're still a part of what we're seeing going on today with Disney and all of that. And, you know, we see that with Revan and a ship in Rise of Skywalker being named Revan, and that he's a Sith Lord at one point. I would love to see his story from Knights of the Old Republic in some way. I want it to be different because I don't want to know exactly what happens if it's recanonized. But we see that with other stuff, with like Battlefront 2, the storyline gets changed with the clone troopers and having different endings and stuff like that. But there's still little hints, little parts of it that have permeated through. And I really, really like that.
Well, I think it's a testament to how influential video games are on people, because, you know, the people that were kids playing all these games that we're talking about are now like the creators. And so like the things that have all their nostalgic attachment to is influencing the work that's getting done now.
Yeah, that's very true. I hadn't thought about like how much these creators played these first Star Wars games, and now they're like, well, I love this part of the game, like, let me put it in. Like, I wonder, did Jon Favreau play Dark Forces, and that's why he included some of the Dark Troopers in Mandalorian season 3? Like, did that influence, or did that come from somewhere else, someone in Lucasfilm that loved that game and brought it in? Like, that's a really, really good point.
Well, as we are connecting more to canon here, I figure we might talk about some of the more canon games. I have a lot of thoughts about the way Star Wars gaming is sitting right now. And I think that, you know, the Star Wars universe is really, really cool. I think that there's a lot of potential. 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 I think that there I would like to see a significant number more games than what we're getting. We're sitting every couple of years, we get some kind of release. And this is across different studios. And I think right now this is a problem. Originally EA held the license exclusively, and that's of course expanded. But even with it expanding, we're seeing all these game announcements, and we're not actually seeing as many games pumped out. Of the major games that have been released, there's maybe 5 major games that have been released. I guess you could say 6 if you count Squadrons as a major release, which I don't know if
most people don't regard it as that, but
but a lot of the way they're doing gaming right now is through mobile games. Right when Legends was created and the Star Wars canon was reset, they released Star Wars Commander, which was basically just a strategy game. It was set between 4 and 5. What's really interesting to me about this particular game, it was really a piddly little mobile game. It was fun. I played it for a little bit at first. It was the first canon mobile game. It is referenced in reference books. It's referenced in the Star Wars databank, which I think is really interesting for a game with really hardly any story. But some of those characters like Sapanza, they're referenced throughout this other material, which ties even a game which at this point, I don't know if you consider it lost media or not. You can't play it anymore on your mobile device, at least. I'm sure there's some way to play it online, but is still somehow canon. We see that even more so as Uprising is released the following year in 2015. I unfortunately I was a Windows phone user in 2015, so I wasn't able to play Star Wars Uprising, much to my chagrin.
He hates himself.
Not until after I do. Not until after that game had ended did I switch over to iPhone. So unfortunately I never got to appreciate Uprising. I have read through some fan has put together a PDF of the story featured in that game. So I have read through a bit of the story. But it was set in the aftermath of 6. And it was only around for really a year before they cut it out. Which is disappointing. I suppose maybe it didn't do well. I'm not totally sure.
I think that's one of the, I don't want to say problem necessarily, but one of the really difficulties of the mobile games. I haven't really dove into them very much myself. I'm not much of a mobile gamer. I'm not much of a gamer anymore. I used to do it a lot more, but I just don't have as much time as I used to. But like the idea that a canon game is now no longer available stings. Like as a canon junkie, as someone who wants to learn it all, and I'm still catching up on books and comics and all of that stuff. I hate that like is considered to be a canon story, but you can't actually access it anymore. Like that's kind of almost what I thought Legends, the creation of Legends, should have resolved, is that there's so much and these storylines are all crisscrossing and too confusing because there's too much overlap, that when you create a new canon, like you should be able to keep it straight and keep it easy and accessible. But that doesn't make it that way.
I know it's a real concern with like the new generation of console gaming too, as we move to like digital only games.
Yes.
There's like fear of losing these games when these consoles are deemed obsolete.
I'm very concerned about that. I have been buying all of my Star Wars games physically. You can see some of them back behind me. Because I'm going to do everything I can not to lose these games. All my other games at this point I buy digitally just because it's easier and sometimes it's a lot cheaper. And I'm very disappointed by the continuing, we're starting to see more rises in pricing for video games, which is a little bit disappointing. But I'm worried that we're not going to be able to play some of these games in the future.
There's another one that just happened to, right? Star Wars Hunters came out just a year ago, and it's already being shuttered. And that even has a book that has come out with it. So like it's even more ingrained into the canon, but now it's again being closed down.
And I do want to say that Star Wars Hunters, the actual game itself, really doesn't offer any kind of story content. The characters are canon, of course, but they're all I haven't read the book, so I can't confirm this 100%. I'm sure they're all referenced in the book, at least the starter characters. I know they've added characters since. I don't know if they're featured in the book or not. I imagine not, but it was a fun game. It was very repetitive. I played it for quite a while with a friend. And he loved it. He continued to play after I stopped playing. It just didn't capture my attention as much anymore. I'm not a PvP guy. I don't have fun with PvP, and it just wasn't for me. I'm also a little sick of games having seasons of content. And this rush to try to get everything done. And as someone who is a collector and has the brain that says I have to do everything, playing that game hurt my brain because it wasn't possible. And this isn't new. They've been doing this, games like Fortnite have, which Star Wars has Fortnite content. Yay.
Yeah. Even Animal Crossing did seasons way back on the GameCube.
Oh my gosh. It's tiring. I'm done with the seasons. I don't want live content unless I like expansions. I like DLC. I'm okay with them continuing to release DLC and stuff, but this seasonal content where I can buy currency and stuff is just, I'm a little over it. But those are really the major Star Wars games. We do still have one Star Wars game still running. In addition to Hunters, that does not seem to have an end. Galaxy of Heroes from 2015. It's a PvP battle game. Again, nothing terribly interesting to me from a PvP perspective. It doesn't add anything new to the canon. It includes several Legends references. I wouldn't take anything that's included in that particular game as canon. I even hesitated to include it under the list of canon games, other than the fact that it released out, within the bounds of canon being reset. In addition to mobile gaming, another area where we're kind of I can see us losing games, and we already have lost some, is through VR gaming. I do want to say this with a caveat. I have put a VR headset on my head once. It was fun. I've just never wanted to spend money on a whole headset. Maybe one day I will. I do have, so there's kind of 3 major games within the VR space. There's Vader Immortal, which actually does look really awesome. I've seen clips of it on YouTube and such, and that does look like fun. Tales from Galaxy's Edge and its sequel, neither of which I've played, and I truly don't know anything about it. And then we do have an upcoming Beyond Victory game, which is like a pod racing VR game, I think. I don't know how much they've released about it, but I know Sebulba's in it. Okay. And that looks like fun. And maybe one day, once they have enough VR games, I will buy a headset. But then there's the worry that, they're not going to support those older VR games. I already know with the PSVR 2, they don't support PSVR games, which is kind of ridiculous. So
if that game is a pod racing game, and if it says new lap record, I might buy the headset just for that purpose, just to hear to hear that again and have that in my life. I would 100% buy it just for that reason.
Well,
so I will have to keep a close eye on that.
Maybe we each chip in $100 and buy a Quest 3. It'll be the Brotherhood of the Traveling Headset.
Yes, yeah. We'll send it to Atlanta, to Richmond, and then a third undisclosed location.
To Mystery Town.
Mystery
Because apparently Mike doesn't get to be killed, just the others.
You guys live in big cities. There's a big
Richmond is not a big city.
They're both pretty good sized cities.
Just
the one
airport. So small.
The one thing I could contribute to this conversation that you two can is I have done a VR experience, which is The Void, RIP. Yeah, they used to have an experience. I don't know if it was exclusively located at Disney properties, but
it was not. No, it was at malls and stuff too.
Yeah, okay. They had a Darth Vader. It was like a Rogue One themed VR experience. And I got to do that one time, and it was awesome. You went with your group, so I had 2 friends go with me. You all put on your headsets and your like backpacks. I think we were given blasters, if I remember correctly. And as soon as you put it on, it's like, oh, this is real. Like everything looked real. You could see your hands and everything. It was really trippy. But like you were going on a mission to steal something from Vader in Vader's castle, and
cool.
There was parts where there were like K2SO style droids coming after you. It was a scary one, not the friendly ones, and
like the Andor one versus the Rogue One.
Yeah, and it was really cool because there was like a part where you would Like you went out like outside on like a platform outdoors, and like you could feel the heat from the lava, and like there
Oh
was stuff
wow.
that you could like physically touch, like the railing was really there, and
Hmm.
things like that was really neat.
Are there
And there,
railings in Vader's castle versus no railings in the Death Star?
I guess so. I guess so. Vader has personal experience with like the dangers of lava, and so I think
That's true.
maybe he didn't want to. He wasn't anxious to repeat that, but no, it was like really intense. Like Vader came after you and stuff like that. It
Oh.
was a cool
Hmm.
experience, and probably the wildest part was when you got to the very end. I don't know if you remember. I think it was C2B5 was the name of
Hmm.
the black and gold like R unit, the R2 droid that was in like all the Rogue One promotion, but I think he got
Yeah.
cut in all the reshoots. I think he was in like the background of one scene, but he was in the room like where you
Hmm.
ended when you like took off your headset. He was there, like he was like physically
Oh,
present in the
cool.
room. So that was cool. But it was a good time.
Huh.
They were unfortunately a victim of COVID. When COVID hit,
Okay.
nobody was exactly anxious to go put on headsets and close like type rooms with other people. So
I think there may have also been some other financial issues.
it's quite possible.
Not surprising. I
Yeah,
think VR like had a really like a high peak and then just crashed after that.
It's not.
It didn't stick around, right? You don't hear
I
about
don't
it
see
that
it
much. Most of those
going
games
much
were
forward.
released a while ago, and they don't stick around, which is a shame. As opposed to the console games, which apparently, if you're a Battlefront 2 fan, stick around for a long time.
I love it. I need to hop back on Battlefront 2 just to be a part of it, but I am so glad that people are back on Battlefront 2. That's so good. It's a great game. And it had a little trouble at first, and I'm glad it's really found its niche and lots of people are enjoying it. I guess that brings us into the mainline console canon games.
Yeah, these are kind of the like meat and potatoes games, you could say, or like the ones that more people are aware of. They have a much deeper connection to canon. Like, yeah, Vader Immortal is technically canon and you can find canon material about it. But these have a lot of tie-ins. They have comics, they have books, they have all of those other things that we were talking about with those the Force Unleashed. What it did was having books and comics and stuff like that. Like these have all really done that, and I think Battlefront 2 is probably the most popular because it's multiplayer. It brings in a lot of characters that people know today, like Iden Versio and Inferno Squadron. Yeah, like a great character, right?
I love Iden Versio. I love Janina Gavankar.
Yes. Yeah, the storyline in that what I think flew under the radar when it first came out because of the bad press that it got, but it is such a good storyline, and it was really early to expand the post Return of the Jedi to fill in that huge gap of what 28 years.
I think it's 30,
29,
30,
30
it's 36. Years? So it's like 30 something years.
30,
it's like 30
yeah,
years.
Yeah, it's like 30 years, and that really helped to lead to the Battle of Jakku, which we had in Aftermath books and eventually Alphabet Squadron. But that was one of the first instances of bringing that storyline in, of what happened in the post Empire storyline, and I really love it for that. I'm not much of a PvP player, and so I didn't really play it online very much. But that really kind of brought me into the game after kind of it first came out. I was like, oh, I want to play the storyline because I want to know the canon behind it.
Yeah, exactly. I love the story there. I feel like the villain turned hero is so cliche at this point, but I thought they did such a terrific job showing her question the Empire, and then when they're on Vardos and the Empire is starting Operation Cinder, and she's realizing that, oh no, they're not good, they're evil. It's cool to see the way that game are we the baddies?
Yeah.
It was cool to see that game overlap with the Shattered Empire comic.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was fun. Early reboot canon did a really good job of overlapping content. We're still seeing overlapping content. It's just not quite as, it doesn't feel as manicured.
It's gotten more spread out over time, I think. But another one that I think did a good job of kind of, again, filling that timeline gap was Star Wars Squadrons. Playing through it right now, still kind of learning that storyline, but it again follows an ex-Imperial. But the interesting thing about that game is you play on both sides. You play in a Rebel squadron, and then the next mission might have you switch to the Imperial squadron. So you're kind of playing from both sides, but it's really dragging you in. And this game is different from most of the other current big Star Wars canon games. You're an unnamed character. So you're just like your Rogue 4 or your Vanguard 4 rather, or Vanguard 5. And then you're in Titan Squad when you're on the Empire side. So you're not a character. You're not Iden Versio. You're not Cal Kestis. You're an unnamed person. And that's a really different, that's almost an old school take on Star Wars games where you're this unnamed person in the universe. And I kind of like that in a way that you're seeing the events of the story unfold, and it's connected to the canon and it connected to these stories of the Starhawk ship that's being made that then appears in those other books and stuff. Or rather, this is after those books were out. But it does something similar. And I think that game really flew onto the radar, but is a good, like if you play the storyline for Battlefront 2 and like that, I think this is a good follow-up story-wise to connect those eras together.
How about one of the greatest Star Wars games ever made?
The one that
two of the greatest.
I'm going to try and get Austin Chansey to play because I think I think it's worth it.
I don't know about that one, Chief, but I'll hear your pitch.
He'll watch me play some games. He'll at least watch it.
Yeah.
So we'll be good there. He'll watch me play.
They have book novelizations of those too, don't they?
They do.
They do
Battle
not,
Scars.
They have it's an interquel, and then there's a comic book, which is a prequel, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I have not read the comic book. So no, you're gonna have to watch, and you're gonna have to sit and watch me play it. It's gonna be great.
Sounds
it's gonna take
it's so
30
good.
hours.
I think we should name it. We haven't actually named it, but everyone.
I'm sorry, Jedi Fallen Order.
Know. Jedi Fallen Order
and Jedi Survivor, both of which are amazing games.
Yes. I didn't know what to expect because there hadn't been a Star Wars game with like a lightsaber character like that really since Force Unleashed, where like you're actually a Force character, like you're going to have Force abilities. Like what is the Jedi combat going to be like? And it did so well. It's such a good storyline, but the combat is also really good. It's really intuitive. I really like playing it on Jedi Master. Once I got through the game once, then I was like, okay, I'm going to tune it up and make it as hard as I can. But it did such a good job, and it's hugely popular. I mean, it's probably out like the most popular storyline from a Star Wars video game, I would think. Nowadays,
I would argue that, yeah, especially nowadays. I think it definitely has the strongest one. The writing on these games are in my opinion, the best of any of the canon games. Absolutely. I would hazard to even say the best of the Legends games. I mean, they're truly some of the best games. You know, Knights of the Republic may overtake it in my heart. I think that we're getting more subjective there. The lore is still pretty deep in both games, especially if you sit and read all the databank entries into the Jedi games.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's so much. And I think I think one of the hardest things to do with a Star Wars video game is having like a Jedi character. Like they're so strong compared to stormtroopers. Like we've seen, Vader just cut through people in that tunnel in Rogue One. That like, how can you make it so the combat is actually a little tough? And they do a really good job. Like Purge troopers come in, and that's now a much bigger part of storyline and canon. And they do such a good job with like making the Force powers not crazy overpowered. Force Unleashed, unfortunately, did that, and Starkiller was a bit crazy. But that was the point: was to like go crazy with Force powers, like feel like a god in that game. Whereas Jedi Fallen Order, you are very strong. Cal Kestis is a very, very strong Jedi, but it doesn't feel crazy. And then like at the end, you run into Vader and you just have to run away. There's nothing you can do, and you realize you felt really strong, and you're not.
You're not at all. It's so funny. Like you have Trilla at the end, and you're battling her, and you're pretty evenly matched, and you think, "Oh yeah, I'm on top. I'm the best in the game." And then Darth Vader comes out of nowhere, which the music and the scene that they capture there at the end. And guys, this game has been out for a long time, so if you haven't played it yet, it's kind of on you.
Austin.
It just
now I don't have any reason to play.
They create beautiful cinematic moments in the game, and that ending one especially is really terrific. And I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, dying inside until the very end. And then we got a sequel, Jedi Survivor. I would argue is an even better game. Just as good. It does things differently. It's much, much more open. I loved the tie-ins with the High Republic, so we're coming back to tying in with other material being released now. And it just makes us want another game. So I'm so excited for the next game.
And I believe a third has it been officially announced that they're working on it yet?
Yeah, they're absolutely doing a third game.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I was like, I don't think we've seen anything about like a release date or anything like that. Because I'm so scared. Like about it. Playing that game, I was like, okay, Cal Kestis, like we've never heard of this guy after the Empire. And so I was like, do we die at the end? Would a Star Wars game do that? And I'm like, well, what can they do except have him die? Or can they send him in a Purrgil to another galaxy and Ezra him?
Only get one of those. Only Ezra.
Only one.
I would be okay if they killed off Cal Kestis at the end of the next game. I think he's had a terrific story. I think that it would really be fitting for his story to have him die in the next game. I'm not going to be mad if he doesn't die. I don't want, I know we're getting more and more Jedi who have survived the Purge. It's okay. They're good stories. It's fun. If they do a good story, it's good with me.
Order 66 is still like 99.98% successful. 10,000 Jedi were in the universe, and we have like 40 of them, 50 of them. So I think we're still good.
That's a successful public health initiative.
Well, they're not going to make stories about the ones that died.
That's true.
So, like, of course, we're going to focus on the ones that lived. But I do think y'all are probably fairly safe with Cal Kestis being kept alive. It seems that they're pretty trigger shy in recent years about killing beloved characters.
Although
Ahsoka's
live action
still
Cameron
alive.
Monaghan playing Cal Kestis in a show,
I would love it.
Like,
Yeah,
people are always
it.
People are always asking for that.
I would die.
Yeah, people are always asking for that. I feel like they, not in any major way, but I do feel like they have like peppered little things from that game and other material.
Well,
I feel like the
Zephyr,
BDX droids are like very
yeah. I say the
you see those
BD
a lot.
droids. Yep. The other thing that's also come about and connected that I wanted to mention is the Hidden Path. Right, Seer is running the Hidden Path on Jedha, and that comes from a connection to the Obi-Wan, the Kenobi series, and really liked seeing those connections. And then again, Darth Vader comes in and just completely decimates and destroys Seer when you feel like you're playing a Seer and you're like, oh my God, I know Vader won't die here, but I think I can beat him. And then you lose immediately after that moment. And those did a really good job of again, like it was a really good follow up, but really good connecting to other media. And then I think the game who has done that probably the best, is the most recent one, Star Wars Outlaws, because it came into a situation where there's not much of a time gap. It's set between episode 5 and 6. There are a lot, 100+ comics set in that time about the storyline that's happening, all following bounty hunters, the main crew, Vader. And this game fits in so well with all of those storylines. And I really love that it brings Kira back. It did a really good job of creating an open world while still having a really good story. Maybe not as good as the Fallen Order story, but still a really good one.
I would agree. The storyline is good. The storyline is certainly not bad. I really like the main character, whose name I'm suddenly not remembering right now. Nyx, her companion, is adorable, absolutely adorable. and I hope that we see more of that species as we move forward. Just because he was one of my favorite parts of the whole game. It was really fun to be in an open world environment. It was fun to go back to Kajimi. It was fun to go back to Kajimi. I enjoyed that. I actually really enjoyed the Sabacc. I enjoyed the Sabacc gameplay. I don't know if that's popular or not. But the Sabacc was awesome. And at least for me, I haven't gotten a chance yet to play the final DLC, but I liked the first DLC they put out with Lando and you're playing Sabacc. It wasn't absolutely stellar, but it was fun to get a little bit more Sabacc in. And I'm excited to see, I know they're not at this point. It was just announced they're not going to do a sequel, unfortunately. But I'm excited to see what other games, maybe we'll see from Ubisoft or whoever.
I would not be shocked if the main character shows up in other places, because I feel like out of all like the categories of characters, like the like lowercase o outlaw characters, like the ones that pop up again and again. So I feel like we could see her showing up.
K-Vess is the name.
K-Vess. Yeah. I could see her because the Star Wars comics have now gone into the post Return of the Jedi era. And I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up as kind of a scoundrel in Aphra Chaos Agent or one of the Star Wars mainline. I could see Kay showing up in one of those two. Like Nyx is really good for kind of scoundrelly work. So I could see that happening.
We also have some kind of Outlaws content coming out. I don't know if it's a comic book or a book.
Yes. Mike Chen, who did Brotherhood, is doing a book on Jalen and ND5, and it's a prequel to the game. I almost forgot about that. It was just announced at Star Wars Comic Con.
It is Outlaws Low Red Moon.
Yes.
So
he
that's
talked
exciting.
about.
So at least we're getting a little bit more.
Yeah, he talked about how it's probably one of the first Star Wars books to have perspective from a droid. That's really a lot of it. And that's really cool. I'm really, really excited for that. ND5 was probably one of my favorite parts of that game.
Best part, yeah.
Seeing that droid have a personality. We've never seen those before. They were always in the Clone Wars, very straightforward, kind of menacing, but not that scary.
I do want to make sure we mention another crossover with Akiva. And we get to see a young Snap Wexley.
Yeah,
in that game as well. So that's a fun little crossover. Kind of crossed Temin, crossing over with Aftermath.
Yeah, I forgot about that connection as well. So it did really good to connect a lot of these different storylines and different threads that I'm glad that they went that way. It felt like it was firmly in the universe, and really it, again, like I talked about, it really pulls you into the world. I thought it did a really, really good job with that. Now we're just waiting to see what's next. We know, like we said, there's no sequel coming for it. The only big game that I'm aware of is Star Wars Jedi 3. And then there's one other that is on the radar. Not that much has been out, but I want to say that it's Horizons?
Star Wars Eclipse, maybe.
Eclipse.
Star Wars Zero Company, I think, was the most recent announced.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one. It's a turn-based tactics game set during the Clone Wars, I believe.
That's right.
So that could be interesting. So that's the most recent, and that's the one that we can expect next year. Star Wars Eclipse, we're not apparently expecting at all
I think
right
for
now.
A few years, or it's paused.
And it was announced 5 years ago, almost. So 4 years ago. So
there's a lot of controversy around the studio, if I remember, the company, if I remember correctly.
So as far as the games that are actually coming out, Jedi 3 will certainly come out. That Beyond Victory VR game that we mentioned earlier, Zero Company is, I feel confident that will come out. It seems like it's coming out next year. They're already advertising for it. I think it's already even on the game stores. Unsure about Knights of the Republic remake. I think it's kind of going back and forth. I could see it going either way. I, of course, am holding out hope just because that game looms so large in my heart. Eclipse, honestly, at this point, I kind of doubt it.
Maybe we'll explore a new era of Star Wars games or somewhere else moving forward.
Dang, this is really disappointing, actually, now that I'm reading this list. We've got Jedi 3, which is, of course, awesome. But then we've got a VR game, and then Zero Company, I'm sure, will be awesome, too. But there's nothing else we're looking forward to in Star Wars.
Well, the fans are bound to determine for Battlefront 3 to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see that.
Put Battlefront 3 on the list.
Yeah.
So
For
in
Manifest
2025, we actually have gotten no games. And I'm looking back, and it is the first year that no Star Wars game will have released since
Canon
19...
reset? Oh, even way earlier.
No, this is the first year that a Star Wars game has not released since 1990.
Wow.
Well,
That's
maybe
I'm
they've
sad.
just been like lying, and Battlefront 3 is going to come out later this year.
It's just gonna drop, and there's gonna be
Yeah.
no fanfare, no loot boxes. It's just gonna be there. All of a sudden, people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, it's live."
But how would I have a feeling of pride and accomplishment, or what is it? Pride and, if there's no loot boxes?
Yeah. Well, for Canon Games, it looks like we don't have too much on the horizon, unfortunately. But one other game series that I do want to mention and talk about, because it has become a pretty important part of Star Wars, is the Lego Star Wars games. That's a lot of people's first entry. Austin, you said that was one of the only Star Wars games that you've actually played on a console.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love those games. It was they're very accessible games for you can pretty much pick up, and you get to relive all the movies. There's been, I believe, 4 Lego 5, I think there's 5 Lego Star Wars games. There's the first one was episodes 1, 2, and 3, and there was the second one was 4, 5, and 6. Then the third one was all those together. There was a Clone Wars one, Force Awakens, and then there was the complete saga.
Yep.
I think that covers everybody. But I mean, I love those games. I played Complete Saga, and then I forget what they call it again, but the more Complete Saga,
Skywalker.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Complete Saga. This time we're serious, but and then those are just like really fun games. Yes, and you get to play as like some character you've never even get to play other games. Like, how many video games do you get to play as, Shakti or Yaddle or Watto?
In the Wii version of The Force Unleashed, she could play as Shakti.
Well, that's fun.
I was always so disappointed we didn't have a Wii because of that.
But yeah, I think especially for kids, like it's a very easy way to access Star Wars in an accessible way.
Yeah, I remember playing, I think it was the Complete Saga 1 through 6, and that was one that I 100%ed. Probably one of the few games that I 100% before I got way past college, because that was just not something I did. But I wanted to find every mini kit. I wanted to get 100% in that bar every time, and they did a really good job adding a lot of good humor to Star Wars, making it funny.
We thought it was
really
so
good way.
funny as kids. We just
I remember.
Laughed.
I remember the joke that was in all the commercials was because if you've never played the game before, in the original Lego games, the characters didn't talk; they kind of pantomimed. And the joke that was in all the commercials was the Vader telling Luke, "I'm your father" scene. He pulled out a picture of Vader and Padme holding baby.
Yes, yeah.
It's so many jokes like that. I saw there's a new Lego Death Star coming out, a physical Lego Death Star. One of the minifigures in it is the stormtroopers in a bathing suit, which comes from the Lego video game.
Yes.
So it's a fun little Easter egg for that.
Yeah. I like that. And I remember one of the jokes was Chewbacca jumping on a stormtrooper and ripping the arms off, that we heard about but never actually saw. So that was another one that I remember from those games. But they've become a pretty important part, because we've had a lot of Star Wars shorts. They're semi-canon, they're not canon. Depends on what you hope and dream for. But certain things like Rebuild the Galaxy has become a big hit. And I think a lot of the humor that they use in that comes from a lot of the humor that got started in those Star Wars Lego games. But I think that's really the main gist of Star Wars video games is a pretty long legacy. They started really, really early, and just like comics, just like books, just like that stuff, like it's added a lot to both Legends and canon in ways that I think probably were never pictured when Star Wars began, right? Video games were hardly a thing in the late 70s and early 80s. They weren't that popular. Probably everyone on some news media were calling them fads, and they weren't going to last. But now there's such a huge part of the canon. They're tied into so many things. We have books and comics that are written about all of these different games, and they're one of the ways that really draws me into the Star Wars universe. It makes me feel like, oh, I'm a part of this. Like you guys talked about how Galaxy's Edge does that. And that's why I wanted to talk about how these video games do that.
Well, on any given day, like I mentioned with Galaxy's Edge, unless there's like a movie or TV show currently coming out, like that's probably the thing that people most interact with in terms of Star Wars is video games. So it certainly should not be neglected. And to that note, for people listening or watching, we kind of just lightly touched on things, but if there's things you want to hear us talk about, let us know. We can do like whole deep dive episodes on any of these. So let us know what you're interested in.
I know I'd love to dive into. I think we could do a whole episode on each of these games. Knights of the Republic, that'd be fun.
If you want us to cover VR, you have to pitch in.
Send us $300 to $500, please.
We'll be on GoFundMe or Patreon shortly to fund our VR experience.
Are we going to be
Star
on
Wars?
We're a little small for Patreon.
Yeah.
We're keeping it simple. We're just friends who are talking about Star Wars in a positive way. And today we just talked about how we like Star Wars video games. And I want to say, if you have an idea, like Austin said, let us know. If you want us to talk about whether it's the music of Star Wars or specific books or anything else, let us know. I know we're going to be talking about more books that are coming out. Crystal Crown comes out in a day from when we're recording this.
So when you hear this, it'll have been out.
Yeah. It'll be out, yeah. And so we're going to keep doing that.
And the Bad Batch, Sanctuary comes out.
Yes,
like in probably a few days from when you hear this episode.
Yeah, I need to put that one on order.
What a treat ahead of us.
Yeah. So I get like really into reading to get through all that, but we will be covering those at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Rogue 3 signing off.
Thanks everyone for joining us to talk about the galaxy far, far away. You can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok as Rogue 3 Media. We look forward to talking with you at the next rendezvous point.